Chipped ham and football, that's what Pittsburgh does, presented by FanDuel. What's up, everybody? I'm Brian Batko from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, one of your Steelers beat writers. Thanks, as always, for finding the show ahead of Steelers-Bengals coming up 1 p.m. Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh on Sunday. And as always, this show is brought to you by Pella. No better place to help you save on new windows and doors in your home than from Pella. They can help you save. They can help you get new ones installed year-round. They can help you out. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find that right product for your home and your budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss a project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. On the show today, I'm going to be joined by the Cincinnati Enquirer's Kelsey Conway, great beat writer for them on the Bengals, keeping it in the newspaper family, print media, helping print media. Look at us. You love to see that. But I really want to talk to her about what's going on with them coming off of their bye week. Not much has gone right since that win against the Steelers on Thursday Night Football last month. So Kelsey will fill us in on the latest with the Bengals, give us some perspective on this game, and looking forward to chatting with her ahead of what is suddenly becoming a pivotal rematch in the AFC North as the absolute gauntlet of the Steelers' schedule looms in the second half. We'll be joined by Kelsey Conway in a second. All right, there's our Bengals guest for the week, Kelsey Conway from the Cincinnati Enquirer. How's it going, Kelsey?
Hey, Brian. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Are you making the trip up for the game, I assume, Sunday?
I am, and I'm hoping we got a little bit of snow in Cincinnati this week, so I'm hoping that's not going to be the case in Pittsburgh.
Well, there were flurries Monday, but I'm not going to lie. I spent most of the day traveling back from LA. So, one, I couldn't sympathize with my wife and kids, and two, I know nobody really wants to hear about how sunny and 66 it was. So, but no, I think the weather's supposed to be a little bit better, and Pitt Notre Dame is at noon Saturday. College game day will be here, so huge football weekend on the North Shore. Let's start with Steelers-Bengals. I mean, after that win against the Steelers at Paycor, everything has gone south for the team that you cover. I mean, we already knew the defense was bad, but I mean, watching some of the interviews in the locker room with you and the other reporters, with the offensive guys following that Bears game, I thought there was going to be like a full-scale mutiny, that there was going to be a brawl between one side and the other. What is there still tension, or did the bye week kind of ease things a little bit with what's going on right now in Cincinnati?
I think it's too early to tell because, as you know, with the bye week, I haven't gone down to the Bengals yet today, but it was definitely frustration, and you could tell players like Jamar Chase were holding back their thoughts on what's transpired in the last two games. And Chase Brown, of course, I don't know if you saw what he had to say, but he was basically just
the most incendiary quote from that post game.
Finished the bleeping game.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting because Zach Taylor said that he wasn't really in favor of those comments because he didn't think Chase had a perfect game. So he was like, unless you have a perfect game, that's not really called for. But I actually thought it was necessary because it's kind of been a weird locker room for the Bengals this year. They have so much star power on the offense, and they just lack so much leadership on the defense. And they're in this transition phase where in years past, we would have gone up to players like DJ Reader and Sam Hubbard, and they would have had no problem calling out the defense. Like, I'll never forget DJ Reader famously saying, like, you have to want to tackle, and like basically calling out his teammates for not wanting to tackle. So I almost felt like that was needed, even though it was perceived by some as like he was calling out the other side of the ball. It showed like fire and passion, and it is unacceptable that the Bengals defense for two games in a row couldn't just make one stop for them to win the game. So we'll see. I think we're teetering on if it happens one more time. I would not be shocked if it's more offensive players. But right now, I think everybody's trying their best to keep it from bubbling up. But then, the whole Burrow factor now changes the whole landscape of where things go. But I think if this weekend in Pittsburgh, if the Bengals score more than 33 points and they still lose, I have a feeling it could just explode of frustration. But, we'll see.
If that happens, then the Bengals front office and coaching staff, in my opinion, should do something unprecedented and just swap out every defensive player for like whoever's left from the UFL, or if anyone's still remaining from the XFL or the Alliance of American Football, get them together with some of the practice squad guys and just run those 11 out there and see what happens.
Yeah. So I've written this a couple of times. This isn't surprising. And I think that's what has the fan base so mad, and why the media members that cover the team aren't that surprised and almost, very willing to be critical of what's happened, because this was the situation last year. Joe Burrow was phenomenal. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown. Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks, and they still missed the playoffs. And so the whole offseason was supposed to be devoted to fixing the defense. And the organization essentially blamed Lou Anarumo, and they won't say that. But you don't fire someone and then have all of your messaging be about how your new coordinator is going to be able to get more out of the young players that you've drafted. And I truly believe that they did not attack the offseason wanting to build a championship defense. They very much feel if they just have like a bend, don't break defense, that Burrow can win them games. And that's where we're headed to a very interesting offseason for the Bengals, because if things keep going this way, I don't know if there'll be changes made with the head coach. It seems unlikely that they would move on from Duke Tobin, but the Burrow thing adds another layer of interesting stuff to talk about here, because I did not 2 years ago think they would ever pay T. Higgins, and they ended up paying T. Higgins because Burrow publicly forced them to do that.
Right.
So I don't know where they go, but they didn't do enough on defense this offseason to fix their issues. They still can't pass rush. They still can't stop the run. They still can't tackle. They literally didn't make any move at safety. They didn't draft a safety. They didn't add a safety in free agency. And Jordan Battle and Geno Stone were two huge liabilities last year. So it's just like a ton of head-scratching decisions, and it's almost like they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I truly take that to the Bengals defense. How could you expect a different result? You just hoped that Al Golden would be able to sprinkle some magic fairy dust on these players and make them better. And it's just gone completely sideways. And I think it goes back to their fundamental belief being wrong. And I think they're going to really have to figure that out. But it's everybody said it can't be worse than last year. It is worse than last year.
And to your point, I mean, it's not even like they have injuries to blame. I know Trey Hendrickson's been out lately, but I mean, that's one. The rest of them have been, like you said, the guys that they had slotted in there to take a step forward and haven't done it. And you mentioned, was it Reeder and Sam Hubbard, but they've obviously lost a lot of other leadership on that side of the ball too over the years. Mike Hilton, former Steeler, Jermaine Pratt, he up and left, and now Logan Wilson has been traded. So yeah, really banking on young players who are far from taking that next step. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating to me that I guess you could say Shamar Stewart was supposed to be better as a first round pick, and he hasn't done much. But
I think that's why the fan base and a lot of us that cover the team were a little critical of the pick, because they needed a bona fide pass rusher who could get them sacks today, not 2 years down the road, today. And Stewart was very much viewed as a project type of pick because he's got all these physical skill sets that he tests off the charts, but when you looked at his actual college career, the production wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so, the Bengals weren't in a position where they were stacked on the defensive line and they had time to, develop him. They needed a guy across from Trey Hendrickson because they whiffed on Myles Murphy. Like, they have just whiffed after whiff on defense, and they are paying the price for just 3 years of just bad drafting on defense.
Who was the guy that fans wanted instead of Stewart? Was there a name that?
I think everybody wanted Walter Nolan, and I do think that had he fell one more pick, he got taken by the Cardinals right before that he would have, taken them. But I think that people would have been interested in Derek Harmon, who you guys have over there. I mean, I can't speak for the fans, but like, you see what Ezeraku's doing down in Dallas. You see,
he had a ton of production coming out of Boston College. He didn't have the measurables, so he was kind of the flip side of Stewart.
Right. So Malachi Starks, even, just like they wanted a player who could come in and you have no questions about him. And right now, that's the problem. There's 2 players on the Bengals defense where I'd say, if you ask me who you would definitely want back next year, it'd be Trey Hendrickson, which that's probably not going to happen. And then DJ Turner, who I'm still a little hesitant because he has yet to be able to play a full season without getting injured. And consistency's kind of been an issue. He's been great this year, but it's still, you got to see it for a full 17 games. And that's really a bad place to be. And so it's interesting seeing the Steelers and Bengals like side by side, because I feel like where the Pittsburgh fan base is probably so frustrated that year after year the offensive issues continue and they can't seem to figure it out. I feel like that is the Bengals fan base with the defense. So if you like put the Steelers, at least the Steelers defensive front with the Bengals offense, I think you'd have like the AFC leader.
I'll do you one better. If the 2 Ohio teams could combine, then they'd really be.
I think you're on something there.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Kelsey, I want to talk more about some coaching and some quarterbacks going into this game, because I'll just get too depressed if we keep talking about the Bengals defense. So, all right, we'll be right back on the other side. All right, Kelsey Conway from the Cincinnati Enquirer. What's up with Joe Flacco? Is he back healthy? Bye week's good for anybody, but I'm sure it's especially good for an UNC quarterback. We've got UNC Bowl round 2, Icy Hot Bowl round 2. He and Aaron Rodgers both balled out Thursday night in Cincy. Is the right arm feeling good for Flacco? And even if it's not, I mean, he might as well whittle it down to the nub, right? Because Joe Burrow is on his way back anyway.
Yeah, so, as I mentioned, we haven't had a chance to talk to Flacco yet this week. Zach Taylor let him go on Monday and to give him a full week. But I'm assuming that if he was willing to play through what they said, like Zach Taylor couldn't have been more complimentary of what Joe Flacco put himself through to be able to play that game and then to score 35 plus points. So I think that, if he was willing to play then, there's no reason to believe that with a week off that he wouldn't be in far better shape. So we'll talk to him today and get a little bit more understanding of how he feels and where he's at. So that's the Flacco update. But with Burrow, that was a bit of a surprise. I had a feeling it was coming soon. But yeah, Monday we got to work and the Bengals sent out their release that Burrow was going to be practicing today and that he was going to be talking to the media. And so that was a nice little surprise on Monday. And, all eyes kind of go to that Baltimore game, but it now makes this game even more interesting between the Bengals and the Steelers. Because essentially, if the Bengals lose this game against Pittsburgh, I know Burrow is going to want to come back, and they're going to have a hard time saying no to Burrow. They don't like to say no to Joe Burrow. But if they lose to the Steelers, I don't think they'll beat the Patriots next weekend. I don't know how you put him out there on Thanksgiving night, which is a place where he's gotten seriously hurt in years past. Still kind of a short week. From what I've gathered, 4 days, the Thanksgiving game is 4 days before the 21-day window would end. So
Okay.
if you're following 21 days, the most likely game for him to return is Buffalo the week after. But again, are you really going to put him out there if you don't beat the Steelers, you don't beat the Patriots, and you don't beat the Ravens, and then
Season's
at that
basically
point
over. Yeah.
you'd be 3-9? What is the point other than to make sure Joe's happy and make sure Joe feels good? But if they beat the Steelers, then the whole Burrow potentially coming back storyline is live, and
Right.
that's just kind of wild.
Yeah. And obviously, Flacco's play will go a long way toward determining that. Mike Tomlin said Tuesday that they can't let Jamar Chase beat them again. Just looking at the FanDuel odds, his over under is 93.5 receiving yards. And, I lost track of how many targets and catches he had
I
in
think it
that last
was
matchup.
16.
Yeah, insane. Just insane numbers, video game numbers. So I'll be curious to see what kind of plan the Steelers have for him in their own secondary that is beaten up about as badly as the Bengals quarterback position lately. They are trying to come up with different solutions. Do you think they'll still be able to force the ball to Jamar? I mean, I guess there's a lot of teams that on Tuesday say we're not going to let Jamar Chase beat us, and then he still does.
Well, the key there is when the Steelers have had success against the Bengals, it's been against Burrow, and when they've been able to get Burrow up front, like when they've been able to
Yeah.
rush him so well. And I was kind of shocked at how well, I think Flacco does an incredible job of getting rid of the ball quickly to make sure he avoids hits. But that Thursday night game, I was very underwhelmed by Pittsburgh's pass rush. Because I've seen so many games where Cam Hayward and TJ just absolutely wreck him.
That
Um,
2022 game in Cincy, the season opener, was
right, right,
probably their best, one of their best showings in recent years for sure.
right. So I think that's the domino, right? Like if Flacco can't get the ball to Chase because they're breathing down his neck, because Flacco can't really move.
Yeah.
But if he has time, I don't think that there's anybody that can cover Chase in Pittsburgh secondary. So that to me is the key. Like, what is Pittsburgh pass rush? Do they have success against Orlando and Mims, or Cam Hayward in the middle against Ted Karras in the guards? I'm curious to see which matchup Mike Tomlin wants to really highlight up front. The Bengals are starting 2 rookie guards.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that hasn't really killed them more than it has. They've actually played pretty well the last couple of weeks. So I think that the way for Pittsburgh to keep Chase in check is up front, because I just don't think if you give Flacco enough time, like there's just nobody that's going to be able to cover him.
Yeah. No, we will see. That'll be the chess match. And I don't even know on Wednesday when we're recording this who's going to be out there in the secondary for the Steelers. All right, Kelsey, before I let you go, last thing, I'm kind of curious. This is out of left field, but Brendan Sorsby, is he a guy? Bearcats QB? The Bengals don't have to worry about the 2026 quarterback draft class. The Steelers do, and he popped up on my radar a few weeks ago. I know he's coming off a rough game against Utah, but he's like 6'3", 225. I feel like he's kind of the hipster quarterback right now for the draft gurus.
I know it's kind of crazy how there were supposed to be so many quarterbacks in this college football year that could potentially be, number 1 picks, and none of them are panning out.
Yeah.
I don't think Sorsby is the long-term answer in Pittsburgh. I don't know where they would have him, but I don't think he's a guy that can come in next year and win you 10 games. He's talented, but he's playing behind a really good offensive line in Cincinnati. So I think the jury's still kind of out on him. But I think that, I've had this conversation. How about this as a possibility in Pittsburgh? Joe Flacco next year.
I want it just for the AFC North.
Yeah, he'll complete
Complete the
his
cycle.
AFC North tour. And the rate he's playing right now, he's playing well enough to start somewhere else. And I say that kiddingly, like, obviously I know, but I mean, I'm really not sure where Pittsburgh's going to go with this, and they've got themselves in quite a pickle.
They should do it just for the bit. If Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers
Mike
retires, go to
Tomlin
another
loves
40-year-old
him,
quarterback.
has the ultimate respect for him, knows the division. So who knows what could happen? But I was joking with some of the Bengals beat writers the other day, and I was like, "What if Flacco is the starting quarterback of the Steelers next year?" And they were like, "That's not the craziest thing you've ever said." So I don't know, but I don't think Sorsby's the answer in Pittsburgh. I don't think he can. That next pick for quarterback in Pittsburgh needs to work, and I think he's just a little bit too unproven to be able to fix all of Pittsburgh's issues.
All right. I had to ask because when I talked to a Colts analyst a couple weeks ago, I had to ask about Fernando Mendoza. I mean, that people right now, Kelsey in Pittsburgh, care just as much about what they're going to do at the quarterback position in next year's draft, I think, as they do about this somewhat rudderless but 5-4 AFC North leading team that's going to be on the grass.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so is it in Pittsburgh? Are people like throwing in the towel on the season right now? What's going on?
They're not throwing in the towel, but there's just a sense of like this is a horrible 5-4 team because of the way that they've just been malfunctioning on both sides of the ball lately, and so many of their big wins have been really baked into turnovers and winning the takeaway battle. And I mean, maybe they'll find a recipe to do that again on Sunday. And I think Aaron Rodgers, he could bounce back from that Chargers performance. If there was ever a soft landing spot, it's this Bengals team. So I think we could be in for another high-scoring affair for sure.
Well, at least it'll be entertaining for us.
Hopefully it'll be entertaining. Hopefully the weather will be decent. And I will see you in the press box on Sunday afternoon, all right?
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Kelsey. Appreciate it. See you soon.
Bye.
All right, thanks again to Kelsey Conway. She does a great job covering the Bengals, really plugged into that team, that organization, as you can tell. I wanted to pick her brain a little bit more about Zach Taylor potentially being on the hot seat, but I guess I'll have to talk to her about that in person over breakfast, brunch, lunch, whatever we have Sunday with our pals on the Bengals beat at Acrisure Stadium. That's going to do it for us today. One last thing, if you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. For more than 40 years, the firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a great Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like I said at the top with Kelsey, what an awesome football weekend in Pittsburgh. I'm going to be at the Pitt Notre Dame game. If you see me, please say hello. I hope it's a good game. It's going to be an electric atmosphere regardless. So thanks for finding Chipped Ham in Football. As always, I'm Brian Batko from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.